I had just finished paying off the $212,000 mortgage on my parents' house when a strange video arrived from an anonymous number. Watch this now. In the video there was laughter, not joyful but mocking. They were discussing selling the house to strangers, thinking I'd never find out. But they were wrong. Very wrong. Lucas sat on the edge of his bed, the soft hum of a Seattle rain brushing against the window pane. His laptop screen still glowed faintly with the confirmation email, mortgage paid in full. A quiet triumph. One that should have felt monumental. He had imagined the moment so many times. His parents' voices trembling with surprise, a long pause before his mother choked out a grateful thank you, maybe even his father clearing his throat to mask emotion. He'd see their eyes shimmer through a shaky video call. A family piecing itself back together. Instead, hours after the transfer, only one message came. Okay, I know. Just that. No emoji. No call. Not even a follow-up. Lucas stared at the screen, rereading the 6 brief words. His chest was tight, not with anger, but a deeper ache. Something like longing. Disappointment had a quiet way of settling in, like dust on forgotten shelves. He reached for his phone, hesitated, then set it down. What would he even say? For years, the distance between them hadn't just been measured in miles. There had been birthdays missed, calls unanswered, small misunderstandings that turned into silence. He thought maybe, just maybe, this gesture would begin to mend the frayed threads. That money, for once, could speak where words had failed. But the silence after giving something so large felt louder than all their past arguments combined. In the next room, the kettle began to whistle. Lucas didn't move. He thought about how love, in his family, had always been quiet. Shown through actions. Never spoken. And yet now, having done the biggest thing he could think of, he felt more unseen than ever. Sometimes the loudest echo is the absence of sound. The room was dark, save for the faint blue glow of Lucas's phone on the nightstand. It buzzed once, then fell silent. He blinked into the darkness, groggy, disoriented, before glancing at the screen. 2:38 a.m. Unknown number. Watch this now. His thumb hovered for a moment. The message felt strange, urgent. Against instinct, he tapped the video. The screen lit up with shaky footage, clearly taken from inside the Arizona house. His parents' living room. The familiar floral sofa. The faded painting above the mantel. The rug he remembered spilling apple juice on when he was 7. His heart stirred with something like comfort, until the voices came. Lara's voice. Light teasing. Laughing. Just 50,000 more and we're good to go. A man's voice replied, muffled. Some kind of realtor, maybe. He couldn't tell. Then laughter again. This time his mother's. His father's low chuckle following right after. Lucas sat bolt upright, the blanket pooling around his waist. The video kept playing. Paperwork shuffled. A champagne bottle popped off camera. He paused it. Heart racing. They were selling the house. The house he had just paid off, his entire savings gone. And they hadn't told him. Not even a hint. He stared into the dark room, his breath shallow. There was no mistake. No misinterpretation. This was real. He replayed the video, hoping he'd miss something. But it only confirmed the truth. No one had told him because no one had planned to. A cold weight settled in his chest, not just betrayal, but a strange kind of numbness. Like he was slowly dissolving from the inside out. He had believed, maybe naively, that saving the house would save something else too. That it might remind them all of what they once were, a family. But instead, it was just a transaction. Another thing to cash out. Lucas pressed the phone to his chest, eyes closed. The silence returned. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was grieving. The morning light had barely touched the skyline when Lucas, with trembling fingers, opened the family group chat. He hadn't spoken there in weeks, months. It had become a place of forwarded recipes, emoji-only replies, and logistical check-ins. Never anything real. He attached the video. His heart pounded like a quiet drum in his chest. A single message followed. Explain. He stared at the screen, watching the tiny checkmarks appear beneath the video. One by one. Mom. They had seen it. 30 seconds passed. Then a minute. Then 5. No reply. No call. Not even a question mark. Lucas sat on the edge of the bed, the silence pressing in like an invisible weight. He'd always told himself that his family was just bad at communication, not cruel, just awkward. But this wasn't awkwardness. This was a choice. 30 minutes later, with no response, Lucas stood up. He walked to the desk in the corner of his apartment, neat, utilitarian, like everything in his life, and opened the top drawer. Inside was a slim folder, untouched since the day he received it from the escrow office. He lifted it gently, like something sacred. Property title, 1275 West Maple Drive. The ink was crisp, the paper thick. The owner, Lucas J. Rayner. He hadn't transferred it yet. Something in him, doubt or maybe just the instinct of a wounded child, had kept him from mailing it in. His fingers hovered over his phone again. This time, not to message, but to act. He opened the banking app. The final transfer, $38000, was still pending. He tapped cancel. A soft chime confirmed it. Done. Lucas leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. There were no tears. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that arrives when illusions finally shatter, and you're left not with answers, but with clarity. His family's silence had spoken louder than any words. And for the first time in years, Lucas was listening. The desert night was still heavy with heat when Lucas stepped out of the cab, the dim porch light casting long shadows across the driveway. The house, his childhood home, looked smaller than he remembered, like a memory slowly losing its color. He hesitated before knocking. The weight in his chest wasn't anger, it was something more brittle. Something like heartbreak. The door creaked open. Laura stood there, barefoot, arms crossed, as if she'd been expecting a package, not her older brother. "Oh," she said flatly, "you got here fast." No smile. No hug. Not even a flicker of surprise. Just tired eyes, and a voice that didn't try to soften anything anymore. Lucas stepped inside without a word. The air smelled like citrus cleaner and old wood. In the living room, his parents sat on the couch. Their postures stiffened at the sight of him, but they didn't stand. The man from the video, Brent, was seated in the armchair, a folder open on his lap. The contract. The sale. Lucas reached into his bag and gently placed the property title on the coffee table. No one said a word, but the silence was different this time. Not denial. Not avoidance. It was the silence of being caught. Brent leaned forward slightly, lips parting to speak, but Lucas raised a hand. "I just want to hear the truth," he said quietly. His mother shifted. His father looked at his hands. Laura sat down on the armrest of the couch, staring at the wall. "We needed the money," she finally said. "You wouldn't understand." Lucas's voice stayed even, but there was something broken just underneath it. "I sent everything I had. But I thought it would matter." Brent stood up, clearing his throat awkwardly. "Maybe I should." "No," Lucas cut in. "Sit. You're already part of this." His mother finally looked at him. Really looked. And for the first time in years, she seemed old. "We didn't ask you to save us," she murmured. "No," Lucas said. "You didn't. But I did anyway." And in that moment, surrounded by blood ties and silence, Lucas realized the truth wasn't just about betrayal. It was about the quiet agreements people make to stop seeing each other. The silence broke, not with a confession, not with regret, but with a scoff. Richard, Lucas's father, leaned back into the worn leather of the recliner, arms folded as if he were watching a rerun of some show he had already grown bored of. His voice cut through the room like a blade dulled by age, but still sharp enough to wound. "So what now, Lucas?" he said with a crooked smirk. "You think sending money gives you power? This house, this life, it's still ours. Always has been." Lucas stared at him, stunned not by the words themselves, but by the ease with which they came. His mother didn't even look at him. Her eyes settled somewhere just past his shoulder, as though pretending he wasn't really there could somehow undo all of this. And then Laura, her voice like cold steel wrapped in silk, offered her own cut. "You just want to play the hero, don't you? That's always been your thing. Show up late, throw money at the mess, and expect applause. Lucas blinked, almost swaying on his feet, as if someone had knocked the air out of his lungs. His throat tightened. "I didn't do it for applause," he said, his voice hoarse, rising like something forced up from deep inside. "I didn't do it for thanks. I did it because I thought," he paused, breath catching, "I thought I still had a family." His voice cracked on the last word, raw and too loud in the stillness that followed. For a moment, even the air seemed to hold its breath. But no one moved. No one reached for him. No one even flinched. Lara rolled her eyes, as if the pain he carried was merely inconvenient. Richard looked away. His mother shifted, quietly, as though discomfort were a burden she shouldn't have to bear. Lucas stood in the center of the room that once held birthdays and bedtime stories, his hands trembling. And in that moment, he realized something even colder than betrayal. It wasn't just that they had taken his love for granted. It was that they didn't believe they owed him anything in return. The restaurant hadn't changed. Same yellowed pendant lights swaying faintly from the ceiling, same scratched wooden booths that had once held 1,000 small moments, birthday candles, childhood arguments, quiet reconciliations over shared desserts. But tonight, there was no cake, no laughter, no sense of celebration. Just silence. Lucas sat at the round table, across from the 3 people who shared his blood but, lately, felt like strangers. He placed a tablet at the center, its screen dark for a moment. Then came the video. Lara's voice, bright and biting, "Another 50,000 and it's done." The familiar chuckle of his father, the passive smile of his mother. The laughter that, once upon a time, he might have felt part of. Now it sounded like knives. No one spoke. They didn't need to. The damage was done, and Lucas was here to name it. Then the door opened. Brent walked in, confused but curious. He was clean-shaven, mid-40s, holding a folder of papers under one arm. Lucas stood and gestured him over to the table. "Brent, I'm glad you came. Please, sit." Brent glanced around awkwardly as he pulled out a chair. "I thought this was about finalizing things. They told me this was the family home, that the papers were just delayed." Lucas smiled, not the bitter kind, but calm, resolute. "That's what they told you," he said. "But they left out something important." He reached into his coat pocket, placed a single sheet of paper beside the tablet, the property deed. Still in his name. Still untouched. "This house," Lucas said quietly, "is mine." Brent blinked. "Wait, you're the owner?" Lucas nodded once. "Yes. I paid for it. I kept the papers. I never signed them over." For a moment, Brent looked at the others. Richard's face tightened, Lara's jaw clenched, their mother's eyes dropped to the table like she was trying to fall through it. Lucas leaned forward slightly, voice steady but stripped of the desperation that had once filled it. "I invited you all here because I wanted to give you one last chance to tell the truth. But I realize now, some truths don't need to be spoken. They just need to be shown." He tapped the tablet. The laughter played again. Only this time, no one laughed back. Lucas reached into his satchel with the care of someone handling something sacred, or perhaps, radioactive. Slowly, he unfolded the crisp document, its edges still sharp from the bank envelope. He laid it flat on the table between them, just beside the property deed and the still-playing, now-muted video. "This," he said softly, almost gently, "is the second mortgage you all tried to take out. Using my name." Brent leaned in. His face, already pale from the earlier revelation, blanched further. "Wait, this is fraud. This is felony-level identity theft." Lucas gave a slight nod. "Yes. The bank thought it was strange that I'd request a loan on a house I'd just paid off. So they called. That's how I found this." He paused, then added, "The signature isn't mine. Not even close." His mother blinked slowly, lips trembling. I'm sure there's been a mistake. A miscommunication, maybe. We would never." But Brent was already pulling out his phone. "I'm sorry, I can't be a part of this. I have to report it. This isn't just a family dispute. It's criminal." Lucas didn't stop him. He didn't need to. Lara, in a sudden slip of nerves, whispered under her breath, "Dad told me to sign." I thought you'd never find out. The confession landed like a thunderclap. The entire room froze, and even the lights seemed to dim around the table. Richard shot her a withering look, but it was too late. The thread had been pulled, and the whole web was unraveling. Lucas looked at each of them, his father, who still said nothing, his mother, whose hands trembled in her lap, his sister, shrinking into herself. Then he gave a small, bitter smile. I already knew, he said, voice low. I was just waiting to see if any of you would admit it. No one moved. The video still played in the background, muted laughter flickering like a ghost on the screen, now more haunting than ever. The morning after the dinner, Lucas stood outside the law office in downtown Phoenix, his hands steady, his heart strangely quiet. He had barely slept, but exhaustion was replaced by something clearer now, resolve. The betrayal had already broken something in him. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth, about boundaries, about healing even if that healing meant cutting ties. Inside, his attorney, Ms. Harrow, sharp-eyed and composed, flipped through the documents Lucas laid out. The forged mortgage papers, the video, the message thread, a copy of his bank's flagged alert. Everything in order. This is airtight, she said, her voice calm. Forgery. Attempted unlawful transfer of property. We'll file for immediate injunctions. The deed is in your name, you've done everything right. Let's freeze their access to anything connected to this house or the loan. Lucas just nodded. He didn't feel victorious. But beneath that numbness was a flicker of something stronger, clarity. By that evening, bank accounts linked to the fraudulent loan were frozen. Notices were served. Lara's panicked texts began first, short, confused. What's happening? What did you do? Then came voicemails from his mother, her voice cracked and trembling. Lucas, we didn't mean for it to go this far, please call us. Even Richard, proud and silent for so long, left a message. You're blowing this out of proportion. We're family, damn it. Lucas didn't answer any of them. Instead, he sent one simple reply to the group chat, calm, unshaken. I didn't destroy this family. You did. Then silence. The kind of silence that doesn't come from absence, but from finality. Like a door closing gently, but with weight behind it. Lucas sat back, phone face down on the table. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself a breath, not of peace, not yet, but of distance. And that, at least, was something. The courtroom was quiet, almost reverent, like a church moments before confession. Lucas sat at the plaintiff's table, alone but composed, eyes steady on the bench where the judge would soon sit. Across the aisle, his parents and Lara were unrecognizable, gaunt, drained, shadows of the people he once knew. Richard's posture was slumped, no longer defiant. Lara stared into her lap. His mother clutched a tissue, her hands trembling, though she hadn't cried yet. The proceedings were brief but piercing. The judge, an older woman with a calm but unforgiving voice, methodically reviewed the evidence. The falsified mortgage documents, Lucas's verified bank transactions, the video recordings, and the most damning of all, a voice recording Lucas had submitted at the last minute. Lara's voice, cruelly amused, echoing through the courtroom. He's too dumb to ever find out. Honestly, it's kind of funny. It wasn't. The judge didn't even pause. In light of overwhelming evidence, she declared, the court finds that the plaintiff, Mr. Lucas Gray, is the sole and legal owner of the property in question. Furthermore, the defendants are hereby ordered to repay, in full, the misappropriated funds, including any associated damages. No cheers. No gasps. Just silence and the scratching of pens. Lucas didn't move. Didn't flinch. But inside, something broke, and something else was set free. His mother finally looked up, tears now falling silently. She whispered across the distance between them, barely audible. We're still a family, aren't we? Lucas turned his face slightly, just enough for her to see he'd heard, but he didn't speak. His eyes were dry. Cold. Not from anger, but from truth. That word, family, no longer meant what it used to. Not a place of safety, but a battlefield he hadn't chosen. And so he looked away, not in spite, but in mourning. Because some goodbyes don't need words. They just need to be real. Lucas stood alone in the quiet living room of the house he had fought so hard to keep, a house now feeling emptier than ever. The familiar walls echoed memories, but the warmth had faded, replaced by a cold stillness that pressed against his chest. His eyes fell on the old family photos lining the mantelpiece, pictures of happier times, but something was wrong. Each frame bore a cruel scar. His face carefully cut out, erased as if he had never belonged. His breath hitched. Slowly he gathered the photos one by one, cradling the fragments of a past that no longer welcomed him. The images felt heavy, weighted with disappointment and betrayal. Without hesitation, he carried them to the fireplace and dropped them inside. As the flames licked the paper, the pictures curled and blackened, the faces and places dissolving into ash. A sudden breeze fluttered through the open window, carrying the charred remains outside, like scattered pieces of a broken story finally set free. Lucas watched the smoke drift away, mixing with the soft sunlight filtering through the curtains. He turned his gaze toward the corner where the camera silently captured everything. His voice was steady, soft but resolute. Family isn't just blood. Family isn't those who betray you when you trust them most. Family is those who stand with you, even when everything falls apart. For a moment, he let himself imagine a different kind of family, one built not on history or obligation, but on trust, respect, and love. It was a fragile hope, but it was his to hold. Lucas took a deep breath, feeling the weight in his chest lighten, just a little. The house was quiet now, but in that silence, a new beginning stirred. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying away the past, and maybe, just maybe, bringing something better with it. If this story touched your heart or made you reflect, please subscribe, like, and share this video. And if you face something similar, don't hesitate to share your story. Your voice might be the light someone lost in their own family desperately needs.